Hello, welcome to Unlocking Landscapes. My name's Daniel Greenwood and I am in the Weald of West Sussex, an area of ancient woodland, which I'm not going to give the exact location of because I don't really do that. And it's Good Friday and I'm recording this on my phone just to kind of test it out, see if it works. It's a grey evening, fairly mild, a little bit of a breeze. I don't know if it comes through on the recording, but there's robin singing, song thrush, blackbird. The trees are all flushing green and there are some boy racers in the car park, I think behaving badly, and I might come back to a car that's been smashed in. We'll find out. So what can I say? At the moment, I'm walking up this ride, big track through the woodland, and there's oaks coming into leaf, birch trees, beech trees, there's some fir trees, I think. I'm not great with conifers that aren't British. They're still here. There's some holly, and there's a birch tree next to the truck with some ivy on it. And I've been meaning to record an episode about ivy because it's probably one of the most, how do you say this, controversial plants in Britain. I don't think for good reason, largely related to trees. So basically this tree in front of me is a birch tree. It's probably about, it's quite as tall as most birch trees get to, really. It's probably about, I don't know, 60 foot or something like that. No more than 60 foot. And it's got these sort of ivy trunks, I suppose you'd call them. They look quite hairy from afar, growing up the trunk, and then the branches come out either side with the ivy leaves, which are evergreen. And the ivy leaves are kind of heart-shaped, particularly as they mature. There's also some honeysuckle in there, but everyone loves honeysuckle. But ivy is often described as a parasite, which is ecologically inaccurate. It doesn't set out to kill anything, really. I think often people see a tree that's fallen down in a storm, or a tree that was in decline and has fallen down and it's got ivy on it, and people say it's the ivy's fault. It's all ivy's fault. Ivy killed the tree. I even had one person say to me once, when I worked in the woods, a wood with a lot of ivy that a lot of people felt quite upset about, that he had seen ivy sucking the sap out of a tree. I just don't think that's possible, or what that would have looked like. I have no idea. But anyway, ivy is a native species to Britain, which is generally a good thing in ecological terms. It does support a lot of different species as nesting habitat and also providing nectar from the flowers and fruit from the berries. But in some situations it can aid the decline and fall of certain trees. And often you get to a position where a tree has been in decline anyway, so like dying back from the top or the crown, and there's more light coming in to the woodland floor. And so ivy, which has been dropped, the seed's been dropped by a bird that's eaten the fruit, the ivy grows up the tree with the light. It travels with the light that's coming through that canopy that's not got as many leaves in it anymore. I hope that makes sense. It's not got as many leaves. There's more light coming through. The ivy climbs upwards. Like, most plants climb upwards, don't they? And then the tree declines further, not necessarily because of the ivy, and the tree falls down, and people say it's the ivy's fault. But in reality, it's far more complicated than that. and ivy gets framed for the death of someone's favourite tree. And working in a woodland, which does have quite a lot of ivy in the past, some of the stuff you see is quite amazing. And I don't mean wildlife, I mean people. People go into woodlands with saws and they cut ivy off trees, ivy that might have been growing for like 40 years. So really significant growth of ivy, because they think the ivy is killing the tree. And, you know, in some situations it may lead to the tree coming down. Some species it can be more impactful than others. But people take the law into their own hands, and they are taking the law into their own hands, because that is actually an offence, because you can't, you know, go and kill a plant without permission, should we say, on someone else's land. You can do what you want in your own garden, really, with ivy, but not in a nature reserve. So ivy, the good things about it are that it provides a lot of habitat through the winter, through the summer, all year round, because it's evergreen. So it provides habitat for bats. Bats can roost in it. Birds can nest in it. So birds like firecrest, goldcrest, robin, blackcap, probably many more will nest in it. Tawny owls will roost in it. And lots of birds will eat the berries. So blackbirds eat the berries, wood pigeons. I mean, the reason it gets around everywhere is because the birds are eating the berries and dropping them, and it grows up from the base of the tree. And the flowers in the autumn are some of the only sources of nectar for pollinators. Now, I know that honeybees do flock, should we say? Is that the right word? Flock to ivy when it's flowering in September. But a beekeeper in Dulwich in South London told me that it's actually not very good nectar for bees, for honeybees, which are they're the equivalent of livestock, because they're managed and controlled by people in the way that a herd of cattle or a flock of sheep would be managed. Not quite the same, but I think you see what I'm saying. And I didn't know that. That was quite interesting. Apparently it crystallises or something. It can be quite bad for the hive. But anyway, that was interesting to learn that. But it does provide a lot of shelter and food for wildlife in Britain, British woodlands. And it also is quite beautiful, I think. There are some places where it can get a bit out of control. I think it seems to respond quite well to environmental pollution in terms of nitrogen. So there's a lot of nitrogen in the atmosphere from, car engines or gas boilers nearby, aeroplanes, or generally in cities you're going to get more of that nitrogen pollution, which is going to encourage the growth of more vigorous things like nettles, and I think ivy does respond to that. So I might be wrong about that, but I think that is true, and that's important to remember as well. So ivy can dominate places, but it is a native species. It's been growing here for many thousands of years, probably much longer than that, probably millions of years. Again, can't put an exact date on that, but it's an interesting debate, and it's one that you can't debate with false facts that ivy is a parasite, but it can be very annoying to people if they want trees to be treated in a certain way. Particularly difficult for tree surgeons. They've told me that in person before. So I thought ivy, good topic to talk about. Maybe get a little bit of a different perspective out there, because I remember when I first saw ivy, really noticed it growing on trees when I was driving with my parents across Ireland, and I was sitting in the back seat, and I thought, wow, that ivy is just taking over all these trees. It's killing them. I also didn't understand how beech trees hold their leaves through the winter. I remember that was quite a thought-provoking car journey. But anyway, I learnt a bit more about it and saw it differently. So I think it's important to take the nuanced approach, particularly with ecology and nature and wildlife. And maybe don't rush out there with the saw to cut the ivy off the tree if you don't know the full story. Okay, I think that'll do. I'm going to continue on my little walk there's no one around. I think the boy racers have gone. I think I heard them going. So, yeah, happy Easter. And thanks for listening. Bye for now.